Green Economy is calling on you to tune in this Thursday and every third Thursday of the month from 8 p.m. for AgriAction, where we provide you with factual information. Be part of the movement, join the discussion, make your contribution, make a difference. AgriAction, where we seek to update you on local and global opportunities and trends. AgriAction, a program of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy. Join us right here on DBS Radio and via our social media platforms. AgriAction, where agriculture comes to life. And hello, good evening, hello and welcome to another AgriAction. I know it's on a Thursday night, but this is a special program. As you just heard from Mr. Fadul, who was before me this evening. We are live here in DBS. I'm bringing to you our monthly program. We've made a commitment to you, the listeners, that we are on once a month to provide information to you, and that is what we are doing this evening. This evening, as you much anticipated, we do have a special guest. We've had him on the schedule for some time now, but so many things are happening. He has been busy, but he's finally made some time for us, and we are happy for that. So I go straight into it because it's already 7:05, and as you know, he has a lot to talk about. So we have none other than our guest, Honorable Julian Defoe. Good evening and welcome. Honorable Defoe, can you hear me? Just a little technical. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Yes.
I'm happy to reintroduce myself, as you say. I'm happy to be here. I'm always willing and able. I have been here a number of times. I'm familiar with this room, and I will take the challenge every day. No amount of time or time of day will keep me away. So it's a perfect way to end a lovely Tuesday. As you know, as a Minister of Government, today is Cabinet, so a very good productive day in Cabinet. So there is no better way to put the as you say, the icing on the cake with this show to educate our people and to share information and knowledge to the nation.
Honorable Defoe, how long has it been since you've been with the Ministry of Agriculture? Before we get into our program, I just thought of that, like we've known each other for so long. We've known you talking about fish and the fisheries sector. How long has it been? I know it's a lifetime, but we want years.
Yeah, well, prior to my political appointment, not appointment, is elected, I think about 22 years. And if you add being in the ministry now, about 24. So.
All right, so that is like, what is it we're saying, about 25, quarter of a century almost?
Yeah.
Okay, but
I'm still very young though.
I see you chime that in. Who, if we had to just ask and guess, I mean, everybody in Dominica knows you right now, but just to guess it, maybe I have a listener, maybe never heard, who exactly is Honorable Julian Defoe?
Okay, so I as you know, I mean, I speak for myself. I don't like to speak about myself because I have a very large number of people who I'm very well acquainted with the entire island who know who I am, and that's what I prefer people to speak about me than about myself.
So give us 1 point.
So I'm from the community of Fonseca, and I like to say that because I still find myself having to tell some people, especially younger people, exactly where Fonseca is. So this is in the south, and some people would say not exactly south because you have to first Kotzet, so sort of southeast, but Lapland people would say no, they are southeast. And so we are in middle between south and southeast, I should say, southeast. Bagatelle, Fonseca, Point Caribsto in that general area, Fonseca being traditionally a fishing community, of course, aspects of agriculture such as bay oil and subsistence farming. But overall, I represent in my political aspect the Petite Savane constituency, which hails all the way from Bellevue-Chopin all to Petite Savane, of course, excluding Grand Bay, but Pichelin, Bellevue-Chopin, Bagatelle, Fonseca, Stowe, Point Caribe, Cadbois, Henny, make sure Fab, I have to mention everybody to make sure. So these entire areas, and Dubique, of course, is a very important community of the Petite Savane constituency.
So we can say safely that you're a community man.
Of course, I am a community person. I still live in my original community. I build there, and
Really?
that's of course.
Okay, okay.
I do
So
not. There are many people who, when they grow, get a little higher in life, they move away to the suburbs. But no,
indeed.
I was always determined to remain in my community, so I built there,
So
and
they
so I
so
live there and traverse every day.
and your community is mostly known for, I'm guessing, fishing in that
Yes,
area.
the foundation community was
Hmm.
traditionally known for fishing, although it's an activity which has dwindled over the years for many various reasons. But yes, it has been predominantly known as a fishing community.
So now that it's summer, everybody's in the sea.
Well, yeah, summer is the traditional time when kids love to spend a lot of time in the sea. And as our sea is not usually as calm as the Caribbean Sea, so you have very good swimmers. So we enjoy both times when the sea is a bit rough, not dangerous that pose any safety to your life, but also we enjoy it too when it's calm. So we enjoy of both worlds.
All right. So some people may also wonder in terms of what is it like? What is it to be a minister of state within a ministry? How do you categorize that? What is your role within the ministry?
Yeah, so my specific role within the ministry, and again, this is not a constitutional forum, but this is something perhaps is a good question and it will be explained because people wonder. I mean, once the president, on the advice of the prime minister, has assigned and signed to you your portfolio, it's essentially this is your portfolio. So within the ministry, I'm specifically responsible for fisheries and the blue economy. So these are, by law, legally, by the constitution, my responsibility. Because oftentimes people ask that question. I mean, yes, within this ministry you have a senior minister, as we call it, Honorable Roland Ray. Again, with overall portfolio. But as I said, once the portfolio is assigned to you by the president on the advice of the prime minister, it becomes, your own personal responsibility to carry.
So what are some of the responsibilities that you speak of?
So within my specific responsibility, as I mentioned, you have fisheries and the blue economy. And yes, in general, the blue economy could really subsume everything to do with the marine environment and that has any aspect of revenue generation investment. So fisheries is probably perhaps the most traditional area of the blue economy. However, because it is such a very important and unique sector to the Dominican society for livelihoods for coastal environment, it gets its own special treatment in and apart, and so not being consumed in the overall terminology of the blue economy. So this is in the blue economy area. We will target other non-traditional sectors, such as sustainable tourism is in the marine environment, as perhaps we will speak about earlier on, other investments that could occur within the marine space, energy, and so on, and even not mixing with our artisanal fisheries. Perhaps we can bring in commercial fisheries, which is an additional aspect which we have not gotten into within our own local fisheries sector.
Speaking of the fisheries sector, you said it's artisan and it's traditional. Can it be classified as commercial?
Yes, so if we have to use another term, we could say a small scale commercial, because these individuals who are engaged in this trade are there for business and for profit. So it is a commercial activity, but though be it in the global context of how we categorize fisheries, it will be considered to be small scale.
Okay, so I like people to learn and I like to educate myself also. Just a quick trivia question. How many species of fish are really known to us in Dominica?
Wait. So Dominica cannot be looked at in its own individual context because we are part of an ocean space that encompasses many islands. So there is no unique or endemic fish to Dominica. We look at the entire Caribbean, Atlantic and Caribbean space. Well, not every species that occur in the Atlantic that we have, because you have, the Atlantic is large, so you have the Southern Atlantic, you have the Northern Atlantic, where you have temperate conditions, the waters are cool, so you have cool water species. But within the Caribbean context, if we go all the way south from perhaps Venezuela to Florida, the Florida coast and so on, we have the species are very similar. So you have thousands of species of fish. So to answer your question, I say there is no species that is unique to Dominica. We all enjoy some you may have more abundant than others because of our bathymetry, and bathymetry meaning the depths of the sea. So some species may be large in abundance in areas with large shelf areas. Some may be more abundant in areas with deep waters. So you have that abundance factor. But in terms of species, it is a wide range throughout the Caribbean Sea and some aspects of the Atlantic Ocean. So, but that's a very good question again. But because of that, FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, have a specific unit in its organization that deals specifically with fisheries, and they are divided in the world into various sections. So we usually in a section, I think it's area 34, called we CAF, Western Area Atlantic Fisheries. So that is the Western Atlantic side. So that the Atlantic is so large, it is divided, and the entire world
Even subdivided.
is subdivided into fisheries zones. So I just wanted to bring that out. Because when they deal with us internationally, or they categorize our fisheries, our species, our landings, and so on, they look at us within that space.
All right, so that was just a quick side question I have. But you did mention blue economy being prominent, etc. But coming back to traditional, because the blue economy is going to take most of our discussion this evening. I'm coming back to the fisheries division itself. I mean, where you worked and you now oversee, and you are responsible at the helm of it. What exactly is the responsibility of the fisheries division when it comes to the laws of Dominica, the day-to-day operations, etc., of persons plying that trade?
Okay, so the Fisheries Division operates under the Fisheries Act, 1987, number 11 of 87. So this is the parent act, which really establishes the Fisheries Division and provides with its mandate, which is predominantly for the management of fisheries resources, and that is all resources, and management in both of in the ecological factor, which is the physical fish itself and so on in the sea, but more so the behavior of individuals that depend on that resource. And the reason I say that, because there's little you can do to manage a school of fish. You cannot control a school of tuna, you cannot control a school of dolphin, you understand, but you can manage the individuals who depend on that resource and their behaviors and attitude, so that you can have sustainable resources. So this is the primary mandate of the Fisheries Division. Over the years, of course, it has also focused on the development of the sector. Because as you know, if you look at 30 years ago, fisheries was really subsistence. That means many people would go to fish just to feed their family, and with the additional amount perhaps they would sell. But you would find today you have quite the reverse. It is predominantly commercial, where people would go primarily out just to catch fish for business purposes, for vending and marketing and so on. Of course, they will take a little thing out of it to take home. Also, they will also share for some individuals. So we still have that tradition where people depend on boats that go out to get a little handout from them, for participating or for helping, for pulling up the boat or helping offload the fish. And so that is still a very important social aspect that retains in the fishery. So these are the two main things. Management of the resource, development, and to some aspect research that would inform management.
So when you look at research, you mean like how we traditionally think of R&D, or you go out there and you undertake research? Is it something in a lab? Is it out in the open space? How is it done?
Yeah, so fisheries research is usually occurs in the open environment. And when I say research, it does not mean like archaeology and so on. So because if you are presiding over a resource, if you're consuming a resource, it is your duty as a state to know the status of your resource. And that is well listed out in international law, which is UNCLOS, United Nations Law of the Sea Convention. While as a state, you have the rights and obligations to harness a resource, but also comes with it the responsibility as a state to manage that resource for the good of the entire globe. And so that is why many countries have instituted fisheries divisions or fisheries resource management offices, whatever nomenclature they may have. It is because of that responsibility that you just cannot consume something without having any care or regard to what you do for the future people that will depend on that resource. So we have to also bear that in mind.
So we are discussing. So we will discuss conservation. I think that's what you're alluding to, in terms of later along in the program. When we look at the legislation to governing fisheries, where are we right now?
Okay, so as I mentioned, so you have the Parent Act, which is number 11 of 87.
87.
And it provides a broad framework for how the fisheries in Dominica should be governed. And it's not only capture fisheries, but also other aspects of fisheries, such as development, processing facilities, such as how you regulate the people who utilize this resource. So you have such things like boat registration, boat or vessel, whichever you may use. Vessels are usually categorized for larger boats. You have,
That's an interesting point you raised. So you're saying boats and vessels are categorized
Yeah,
differently.
so we use them interchangeably. But pretty much when, in the global sphere, when you speak about a vessel, you speak of a much larger vessel with inboard engines and so on, and that can spend multiple days out at sea. What we call is mostly just a fishing boat, But for sometimes the word is used interchangeably.
So what would you categorize as a vessel then?
So I
in terms of feet or...
yeah, so usually in terms of capacity, the tonnage, the length, and its capability. Is something that is able to stay out at sea for multiple days and mostly, characterized by inboard engine and so on. So these are basic things. But this is just a nomenclature thing. So in Dominica context, I rather say fishing boat.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's what we're accustomed to. Do we still use canoes?
Of course, it is, the number of use of canoes in the industry have dwindled significantly, and it's not for going away of culture, but as time has evolved, the demands for food safety and even occupational safety and many other things, with time and such as bigger boats and efficiency. There are many things that can explain why we have evolved from canoes, but this is the reality. But they still have a part to play, especially in the beach scene, in the coastal pelagic sector, where you use the beach scene, Balau and so on, and very few because of their maneuverability. So sometimes a lot of people who cast in like coastal pelagic, schoolie and so on, perhaps they want to reduce the amount of noise and they want something that can be easily rowed, in terms of so if you notice our larger fiberglass boats and so on, it's not that easy to row as a canoe. So there is still that place. But increasingly, even canoes, are being replaced by boats built out of fiberglass and so on, where you can attain the same efficiency. And as you know, there are also conservation aspects to look at. They're built from very large gomye trees, and as you know, for Hurricane Maria, we have had a heavy heat on those trees and so on. And there are many things as we go, as people develop. Sometimes the cost, and you may find that the cost of building a fiberglass boat shaped like a canoe may be even cheaper from cutting one from the forest. But I'm not disclaiming that it is an important aspect of our culture that we should cherish. But yeah, with time things have evolved. And we have
the natural progression of life and development.
Yes.
But it has a place, maybe, let's say, for tourism. I was just thinking, and maybe tourism and maybe culture, that could maybe be something we could look at.
Yes, definitely. As I said, it still has a place, and it's still being used in some cases within the fisheries sector, but very few nowadays.
So we've broken down. So we've dealt with fisheries in terms of that aspect: traditional, artisan, small scale, commercial, etc. We'll move now to your other responsibilities, which is, I guess, more modernized and more trending, which is the blue economy. So what is your definition then of when we hear blue economy? Because we're hearing of orange right now, green, etc. So what is your definition of the blue economy?
Okay, so the blue economy, in the simplest terms, I will say, is maximizing the use of the marine environment, especially the ocean, okay, to generate sustainable growth. That is what it is, in the most basic term for our listeners to understand. It is the use of the marine environment to generate revenue, foster investment in the most sustainable way. And I say this because most people put a large connotation of conservation on the blue economy.
I think you saw my questions.
Yes, on the blue economy, because this is general thinking. And it is conservation. Yes, we have to conserve. Yes, we have to preserve. But of course, we have to grow. We have to evolve. Our economies have to prosper so people can live well, so people's personal incomes can be improved, profitability, and so on. But the magic word is we believe that we can do so, use our marine environment in the most sustainable way that we can have a balance. And that is the ultimate thing, that we can have a balance in the use of this ocean.
Okay, so balance and just but when you say really utilizing these resources, what are the resources that you refer to?
Okay. So
Mhm.
I'll give you an example, and
Nice.
I'm going to give you a very good one because it is really non-traditional. And as you would know that for many years the government of Dominica has pursued heavily in the geothermal sector, and so that we can harness clean energy, and not just only clean energy, but an energy that could be produced at a lower unit cost, and hence our overall cost of to both consumers and businesses could be lowered. And by doing so, we can attract foreign investment who want to invest in manufacturing and so on, and even for our own local. So anything that requires energy. So anywhere that you can lower your energy is very important. So we have spent tens of millions, perhaps I could say hundreds of millions. I'm not sure, but let me just be safe and say tens of millions in geothermal sector. So we know of Loda, where the pads are and the wells and so on. But you would be surprised to know that our geothermal energy extends to the seafloor. All right? And there are technologies in place that can enable us to harness it. And I will go on a little further to say, those who are involved perhaps will expound on it in future time, because I don't want to take the shine. But there are work ongoing and efforts as we speak for us to determine the capacity and the extent of this underwater geothermal energy that resides offshore in Dominica. As I said, this is something which is real, which is ongoing, which is efforts are being done as we speak, but perhaps at a later time, more information. So this is a perfect example, because most time people want to think of the traditional areas of maritime and so on, but even energy in itself. In other parts of the world which have similar conditions, marine conditions to us, the Maldives and other areas in the Pacific, are exploring in terms of minerals, high value minerals that can be used in microchips and so on and so forth. We are not there yet, but that doesn't say that is not an area that we may seek to pursue once we have the right studies and exploratory done and so on. So these are all potential areas. Wave energy. In many parts of the world now, those who have coasts that have a high surf, and we do so, we do have, especially on your east coast where you have the Atlantic Ocean, you do have large waves, and there's a possibility of wave energy. I'm just mentioning it. I'm not saying it may not be a short term or medium term, but in the sphere of development and strategic thinking and planning, these are areas with potential for energy. So this is just to list a few of the non-traditional areas. Of course, I don't want to leave out a very big potential that we have not even tapped into, which is commercial fisheries. And we begin the discussion speaking about our artisanal fisheries. This is our fishers who go out for one day and so on. But Dominica really and truly having a large body of water. Dominica's land space, 754 kilometers square. We all know that very well. But if I tell you that our marine space is over 28,500 kilometers square, so you can imagine that our fishers are just
754 now?
have it. No, 754. Yeah, that's the land, but the marine space is 28,500 plus. So you can imagine the amount of waters that have not been explored by our fishers, or they're not utilized daily. So there is a huge potential for us to also, go further in looking at commercial fisheries. But this is something that we can have separately going into the future that we will look into, and there are multiple ways and avenues in which we will explore that option. But of course, always keeping in mind sustainability is also on top of our mind, whatever that we choose to do.
I was a little intrigued because from 754 we on 20,000 you mentioned.
Yes.
28?
Yes, so that is our marine space.
Yes, but that
Our
is a
marine
lot.
space. So if
So
you
is it because of the depth
so
or
no, so this is just area.
area? So
Petra.
territorial
So
waters.
if you paid attention to a little math, in school, maybe just about first form, you know a
Yes.
little about area. So we're talking about general area, yeah,
Okay. So
of water. So if you do a simple math,
yes.
divide 754 by that number, and you see how many times larger our ocean space is.
Because I was just thinking of people who dive, people who explore,
Of course.
etc., etc. That's a
And,
lot.
and this ocean space is usually within 3 tiers. Again, just for the knowledge of our users. So you have from the shoreline up to 12 miles, you consider your territorial sea, and that comes with a lot much stronger rights of the country and so on. And then you go a little further out, and they added another 12. You call that the contiguous zone. But let's just say up to 200 nautical miles. It is considered as the exclusive economic zone of the country, where you have the right on the UNCLOS, as we say, United Nations Law of the Sea, to engage in activities such as seabed mining, commercial fisheries, and other aspects which may be of benefit to your country, as you so desire, in whatever human resource capacity that you have.
So anybody meets me there, I just say I'm a Dominican and I'm in Dominica.
Of course. So once you are within these areas, you are in Dominican waters. Of course, there are special rules for what you call, freedom of navigation. You cannot prevent another ship from passing through, and those sort of things. But yes, you are well within your waters, and so there are things that are very strictly prohibited once you're within your waters. So another country cannot, yes, they can pass, but they cannot fish within your waters, and certain things. They cannot conduct commercial activities within your waters,
But
trade and so on.
I don't want
Yes.
to cut you short, but there have been instances of that.
I mean, of course, in everything,
yes,
you
right,
don't
too.
live in a perfect world, Petra. I mean, in every part of the world, in the most world, something will happen, but this is not the general norm.
So that's just to clarify. So we mentioned about the blue economy globally, etc. But for us in Dominica, you did mention one or two aspects. Any more we should be cognizant of in terms of what we can really tap in or really harness?
Okay, so I spoke of those high-end ones. And of course, again, as I said, the strategic planning, these are things that will be explored. But in our own current local context, so we will look at the non-traditional areas, such as especially in the tourism sector. This is increasingly, as you can see, a high volume of high-end tourists visiting Dominica, especially for marine-related water sport activities. So this is a direct example. You come from Europe, you come from America, and you come into Dominica. Trafalgar Falls was not foremost on your mind. Hiking the Waitikubu Trail was not foremost on your mind, but you came primarily to dive. You came primarily to go whale watching. You came primarily to go swim with whales. And while you are there, of course, you will do other things. So that is what I'm saying. As they say in tourism is everybody's business, every aspect. But there are people who come just for that. And why I want to separate these people, a lot of the clientele who come to engage in water sport activities, you find they are mostly of the high-end part of the tourism market, the elite part, I would say, very rich people who spend a lot of resources, coming sometimes with their private jets, coming with their private yachts, staying at the high-end hotels for many days, and they really contribute a lot to the tourism sector, even if they may be on the grander scale of things lesser in numbers. If you spoke about total tourism numbers that come to Dominica, because you have to cruise the cruise ship, count the cruise ship passengers, but you may find these individuals' impact sometimes are much greater.
Okay, so we are saying in terms of, is that the norm? Is that because you say that, yes, and I understand because it's a lot, but is that, let's say, 10%, 20% of our tourist arrivals?
Well,
is that a 1%? Just to
I wouldn't know the percentage because I don't like to speak numbers without assessments. As you know, I love science a little bit.
Yes, indeed.
So it's not safe to speak of. So we can only get those figures perhaps when we would have conducted surveys. Of course, I know these are things the Ministry of Tourism are working on in many of the key tourist destinations in the world, when you go there, you will find somebody at the airport who meet you and ask you, what did you come for? Did you come to go to the freshwater lake? Did you come primarily for the... So, and I know the Ministry of Tourism have plans to do this sort of surveys, which will really inform us. So without that, I don't want to give a number, but what I would say is year upon year, this number is more and more becoming more significant.
Because I mean, we do advertise, we do promote, but one of the things I want to really ask though, do you find that you get persons who say that because my friend did it, or my family, or I've known them someone, or
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's the next aspect I want to speak to. As you know, there are a lot of other countries in the world who have last marketing budgets, and they can put market data on CNN, those sort of things. But I mean, Dominica is very unique. You find a lot of the people who make the effort to come, at the end of the day, are the key and the best ambassadors that we have. So a lot of it goes on the word of mouth. And why does that work? Because almost every individual who comes to Dominica that I haven't encountered goes back with a 5-star experience. And I engage them a lot for many years, very high-end clients, very high-end personnel people, some of which I cannot perhaps even disclose. And so when you have this caliber of people giving the country that praise and even writing you back about it, there are people who have wrote back to me, high-end, just to express their satisfaction. And sometimes, though, I do a lot of ambassadorial work too, for tourism, because I meet them and I boast. But I always like to let them know what to expect. And then they would write back to me, or they would call back to me and tell me I was right. And I never try to always paint this picture perfect. I told them what to expect. I tell them that you're going to encounter a Dominican who is not violent, but is direct. And they tell me, oh, that's very true, because this is what you want. You want people who will give you directions, but not give you fake smiles and speak in a funny accent that is not characteristic of where they're from and those sort of things. And they really appreciate that. The taxi people, they always tell me that they're wonderful, and everybody in the so the experience speaks a lot. And as I told you, because of these people's circles, that they would say these things to the peers, and then you would have these people now wanting to come and experience and Dominica, and even they themselves become repeat customers. I'll give you an example, and especially for the activity of swimming whales that we have, which is a very high end activity. You would be surprised. You have individuals who have been coming to Dominica for the past decade, almost every year, to do the exact same activity. I mean, that speaks volumes. That speaks volumes. And some of them have become my friends because the virtue of they coming every year, or if they can't come every 2 years, to do just the exact same thing that you did the year before. So these are the type of promotion the country needs. And as you can see, the accolades which Dominica has been receiving in recent times speaks for itself.
That is interesting, but do remember we had agriculture, so you have to talk about the food.
Yeah.
So it's not just the taxi or anything. You have to tell them the food. Don't forget our cuisine.
Yeah, I mean, it's not possible to mention everything.
I just
to everything, but of course our cuisine is a number one part, and I must say they always bring about the access to fresh fish, because I always paint the picture that the fish that they're eating, especially if I have a opportunity to have dinner with them, was caught this morning.
Uh-huh.
I always say that to them, and literally most time this is very true, that the fish that they're eating was caught in the morning that we're having for dinner.
That is lovely. I want to take a break, but we have so much to discuss. Can we just continue, or you want to take a break?
No, I'm willing to continue.
Yes, because we have so much to discuss. In terms of water sports, where does that fit in right now within the blue economy space? We will come back to sperm whales because that's a separate topic by itself.
Yeah. So as I said, outside fisheries, which is very traditional and maritime transportation, water sports has been emerging very strongly, I should say, from perhaps since the 90s, late into the early 2000s and so on. Because as a young officer, I was there to see the rise in especially in the diving sector. And I myself is a certified diver since around 2001, scuba diver. And I remember engaging a lot with Dive Dominica and Anchorage at the time when it was operational. And I have seen over time other dive shops come out, and I have seen they have many repeat divers. And not just that, I engage them a lot in my prior job, and even today, just to see how they're doing, how to see business is doing. And bookings, are very crazy. Sometimes you're not even able to get space. Sometimes I know some of our clients, sometimes I try to get bookings for these companies, vessels, and so on, and they are all booked out. So that speaks volume. But so this aspect has been growing tremendously, and the difference is that we have a unique experience which others do not have. Corals are not just corals. A dive is not just a dive. So in many of the other competing islands, you have very flat reef areas in very shallow waters. And as you can imagine, with the rising through climate, because of climate change, the rising in temperature, of course, the sea temperature is going to high, and you have a lot of, from time to time, coral bleaching. So these countries now are more exposed because their reefs are shallow. We have been able to get some level of protection. It's not that we are immune. It's because a lot of our reefs are mostly deep, or they are built. They occur on the walls, on the cliffs. And so that gives this sort of dives are very unique. Is a very unique feature which a lot of people come, especially Dominica, for to dive. So this is one area, but also you have seen other emerging areas with locals making investments in, and we have seen the kayaking an steady increase in kayaking, and other sports such as whale watching. Well, whale watching has been around for the time, and as I said, additional from about more than a decade ago, we emerged with higher end activities such as swimming with whales. But also you have recreational fishing. Also, but although it is much more dominant during the cruise ship season, so we have individuals who do very well during the cruise ship season in recreational fishing.
What do you mean by recreational fishing?
Yeah, so recreational fishing are people who would perhaps charter a vessel. I would go out for a few hours with their rods and hoping to catch something, and whatever they catch, sometimes they eat or retain, but it's just really fun. Sometimes you don't even have to catch to enjoy the trip, because there's no guarantee when you pay that you're going to catch. But it has become an increased activity that people like to engage in.
Also, when we pass in the afternoon, sometimes we see smaller vessels filled with tourists. That is what they're engaged in?
Yeah, sometimes they're just going offshore Dominica. And the good thing is the chances of catching fish in Dominica is very high. And again, this goes back to our own culture of how we treat our marine environment. We don't have, any extent of overfishing, and we use sustainably. So therefore, the chances of catching are very high. You'll catch a barracuda. If you're very lucky enough, you may be able to catch a marlin, a wahoo. So there are many different species that a tourist has an opportunity to catch. So so when a tourist goes out, it doesn't matter what he catch. The fact that you caught something, and that is well for our industry.
So just the fact that he was in the Caribbean Sea with his fishing rod, maybe a beer or two, or rum punch.
I mean, I will give you a little joke. I have been to many countries, and unfortunately, to see people dress up, line up on fishing docks.
I think I know that joke.
Hundreds of people.
I think I know that joke.
And they are all geared up in the latest fishing gear with the latest rods, and they have these sort of jackets with the pockets and stuff. And I watch everybody's basket is empty. Nobody has nothing in it, and I myself just watch into the water around there. You don't see anything swimming around. So just the notion of it, of the skill doing it. So I keep saying to myself, but if I was in Dominica, them fellas have something. Even though it's a mako shot, you must catch something. You understand? So sport fishing is a very, very big industry. It relaxes the mind. Those of us who are engaged with it, and people who engage in fishing know how relaxing it is into the mind, apart from being a job and occupation.
I think you're still fascinated by that many years ago, right?
Yeah, I'm still.
That people go to the store to shop just to look
big
good.
Investment, high-end brands of rods and jackets, and even the shoes and basket tackles and everything, but you really don't catch anything.
But speaking of the blue economy once again, where does aquaculture come in, and what exactly is aquaculture?
Okay, so if we were to talk about blue economy, because I mean it mostly returns to the ocean. So aquaculture encompasses both freshwater and sea. So if specifically we would refer to that activity, aquaculture in the ocean or in the marine space, as mariculture. And of course, um, you know, there are limitations that we have. One of which, it is that many other islands have a lot of coves and protective areas where you could do things in a very safe manner where the sea will be calm because you're protected by bays. Unfortunately, Dominica do not have too many bays. So a lot of so it sometimes to an extent it restricts our opportunity for mariculture. But that being said, we have been trying very hard to increase the production of of a seaweed we think which has very great potential, which is sea moss. And the reason that I say that, we have in Dominica we have a lot of experience of consuming sea moss, primarily as a beverage. And as the significance has increased, as you can see in terms of the market and the demand for sea moss beverages, so we have had well-established companies such as Benjo's and Benjamin, exporting regionally and perhaps globally. And then you have seen a lot of from the domestic level, people selling out of their coolers a lot of different types of sea moss drinks and so many varieties, with milk, without milk, and all manner of things, and it's very popular. It's very popular. But what has happened is because because of the demand has been so high, these people have had to rely on to import from neighboring countries such as Saint Lucia and Grenada, who have larger base than us and can produce a larger amount. So hence, and then they are able to produce at a lower cost. So this is what we have been trying to achieve over the past year. That if we can increase production, now hopefully that this will enable the people who are producing to sell at a lower cost so that they could perhaps match the exports. So this is in terms of propagation side, but we still do have some harvesting of local species that grows in the wild, especially in areas like Calibishi and Mutfordale and so on. But we have invested in quite a number of groups, organization that are scattered throughout the island. Some of them predominantly women, some of them are mixed, and it is a progress. And they are doing well, and they're increasing, and gradually they are learning, because it is something that you cannot just do sometimes in 1 year and figure out that you're going to reach your target. Sometimes it takes 1 or 2 years to really understand. What to do, what are the best ways, and so on. But we have introduced new species in addition to the traditional ones, which has no, I should say, when people hear about introduced species, which has no ecological risks. Okay, this is just faster growing that you can tie on the line, so that you can harvest sea moss every 6 weeks. So it is a progress. We have the Wuti Sea Moss group. We have Seaforce in Calibishi. We have a group in Grand Bay. We have a group now in Tukari. So it is a progress. It is a work in progress as we try to build our production of sea moss to augment the import.
So one may ask then, so we can look forward to a reduction in the unit price per pound in terms of dried wet sea moss as it relates to those involved in the beverage industry. And I think sea moss is even grown in terms of hair and beauty, etc.
Yeah, so there are some groups which are doing that additional work. I wouldn't want to really spill out their thing yet. Perhaps that is something that is secret. I mean, you know how it is in the business world. So I don't want to say who doing what, but I know there are some organizations that are looking further afield, because we have to go beyond the beverage sector and into higher value products in the chain. So there are capacity. So I wouldn't want to say anything about what they are doing now, but just to assure you, there are organizations now that are looking at other high-end products. In terms of reduction in prices, that is the ultimate goal. But as you know, we live in a capitalist country, and as long as sometimes I say that people are willing to purchase, the product at the price at which they are being offered, and it does not stay on their hand, of course, they are going to continue with that price. And so thus far, it seems as if like the demand is still high. So whatever they are producing, they are able to sell at whatever price petra it is that you think is high. But perhaps prices can be taken into context. And again, as I said,
most
is demand and
definitely.
supply. But the ultimate goal for people who want to go into mass production, of course, you would have to get your raw material at a cheaper price.
We also spoke briefly about the sperm whale reserve and how is that coming along. I know the launching was fantastic. A lot of international people are looking forward to it. Where are we right now?
Okay, so as in since the establishment, and I will not speak about the establishment because this was well articulated by PM a number of times in budget address and in other forums, and also when the Honorable Roy, I believe on behalf of PM, made the actual pronouncement of the establishment. So since then we have done tremendous amount of work. Post the establishment, the pronouncement, was to develop the actual legislation, because it is something that you have to legislate. And as legislation can take time. So you have the period of drafting. Not just before drafting, you have consultation, then you have drafting, then you have a tremendous amount of review by legal persons, by stakeholders, and so on. So I am proud to say that we have gone through almost all of these steps to the point that we now have a draft legislation that is being reviewed at the moment, okay? And so it has to go through a few more steps, as I said, to be refined, to make sure that it is consistent with the Constitution, that it is drafted in our own way, because sometimes you have consultants that may be from different parts of the world, and their drafting style may not be in conformity with ours. So you have all of these intricacies to deal with. It is not just straightforward, somebody writes something for you and you go to Parliament with it. But the hope is that, pretty much by the end of the year, all of these things can be done. And I'm confident, I'm satisfied with where we are, the amount of work that has been done, and the amount of work a lot of our own people in Dominica, civil servants, has put into it in collaborating with our external partners. And so this is where we are. We now have a draft legislation. It is being reviewed. And in addition to that, work is ongoing on developing a business model that will advise for further regulation as to fee structures and further things. But the emphasis now is on to have first work on the act, and if there are other pieces of regulation that are required, then we can come subsequently and develop and deal with these things.
Okay, we're pressed for time, but something interesting you mentioned. So you're saying we have the opportunity to make monies out of this? I thought we were just like a tourism, like an attraction, like any other thing. We
Well,
actually are able to make monies out of this?
So Petro, I don't believe you were listening to my definition of the blue economy in the beginning. We have a nation to feed, We have roads to build. We have schools to build. We have children to pay for the scholarship for. We have the civil service to pay. We have the hospital to make money for. This is a country, So as I told you, the meaning of the economy is to really use what we have. We don't have oil. We don't have gold.
And I think it was capitalized.
We don't have bauxite. Not just to capitalize, but we have to leverage the resources that we have for our own benefits. But the magic word, as I have always mentioned, as an island nation people, there is no one in the world who cares more than us, and the leader, the Honorable Prime Minister, always says that cares about more than us about conservation. Conservation is key to our heart. We have to protect this island. We demonstrate that all the time, but we have to use what we have to generate income, revenue, and livelihoods for our people. So this is what I speak about leveraging. So of course the establishment of the first sperm whale reserve in the world is about conserving these beautiful populations of sperm whale that we have, and it's for unique reasons. Again, this could be another discussion. Why the sperm whales reside in Dominican waters for perhaps more than 90% of the time. So there are special reasons why we are doing that. We didn't just say we're going to make a reserve for Bala or make a reserve for Zoffy, So there is a reason that we chose sperm whale. But that could be another discussion. But in addition to for us genuinely caring, and because it is a resource that we depend on. When people go whale watching, you want to see a whale. When you go see many whales, you want to have a 95% chance, 98% chance that you're going to encounter a whale. So we have to do what it takes to provide that important tourist activity. So therefore, the way to do that is so that to put measures in place. And the reserve is not just a space. The next major component of that reserve that puts the preservation aspect is to control the level of maritime traffic that you have passing through that space. And that is why an important part is the demarcation of the shipping lanes. Once you can get those from the International Maritime Organization, because most countries have that already. You cannot just drive a cargo boat in any part of the island. You have to use or traverse through a specific lane. So these are the things, the key part we are adding to the reserve that will ensure that we reduce the impact or even the possibility of a ship strike, on a whale or on a calf, of those sort of things. So that is the key component.
I think that, yeah, and I think that's very, very detailed, and I do understand, and I think the public would appreciate and understand why it takes a little time, and all these things that have to be accounted for and taken into consideration. And we're moving forward because we have so many things. I know that when I have you here, I should have budgeted more time. I just knew that in my mind, but hopefully DBS can indulge us. We also look at the Emergency Agricultural Livelihoods and Climate Resilience Project. As you know, that's a project to restore the livelihoods of farmers and fishers. From the records, we see that over $5 million has been provided, whether through assistance directly or through labor or rental of properties, etc., to the fishing sector. Does that sound accurate to you? Do you feel that on the ground, because you've been within the project, you've known what's happening? What is your take on that?
I mean, so many times we like to speak of figures, but the values of projects are not figures. Figures can misconstrue people as to the true value. It is the interventions, the output, and the results from these interventions. Because value, when you speak of value, I think it includes a man's salary, a man, those sort of things that are involved in engaging. It might even involve the cost of your funding agency, be it the World Bank, with the CDB, the travel and stuff. So sometimes values are not quite that accurate. But what I will tell you is the investment is significant, tremendous, and started since post Hurricane Maria. And Deal Crep, Dominica Emergency Agricultural Livelihood Project, as you said, it is a post Maria, and it was the objective so that we could rebuild the capacity of fishers and farmers to make meaningful production into the sector, and so that we can meet our targets. And then you have seen the recent policy target has been 700 million. So first post Hurricane Maria, we had one of the first intervention which cannot go unnoticed, which was a cash grant, and you had two categories of 3,000 fishers. You had fishers and farmers getting grants so that they could do immediate investments. And post that, now you had a more structured program that would provide the boats and engines to fishers. So they were in two parts. So the first 106 fishers have already benefited, who got engines. So these were people who were assessed, who applied and who were assessed, and it was determined that they did have a boat for these engines, and so they qualified, they received their engines. The second component is for the construction of boats. And there have been a bit delays through the processes of the funding agency. And I say funding agency because I don't want to use the word World Bank too much, because in the public I have a problem trying to explain to many people that it's not a World Bank project. It is a Government of Dominica project funded by the World Bank. And it's not a World Bank boat, and it's not a World Bank engine. Again, I will use every opportunity I have to clarify that, as always. So the World Bank is a funding agency, a loan which we have to pay back, which we are giving to fishers and farmers. So we have some boats to build. There has been a bit of delay, but we are moving on stream, and production will start very soon of these boats. As you have seen yourself, the molds are done. We have 5 highly skilled boat builders with their own individual crews that will be working on these boats to deliver these boats to these fishers. And we have other components in recent time addition to the project, which we called, as you know, CERC, I think, Contingency Emergency Response Component, something like that is the acronym, which we are putting investment in about 8 to 9 fish landing sites, all right, to enhance food safety, to enhance the occupational safety, to enhance the environment and in which these fishers operate to provide more meaningful amenities to this area. And the investment is tremendous. Anything that you can do in an area to make life easier for a fisher is beneficial, because we also have ambitions to increase production and and for us to even engage after we have satisfied the domestic market to engage into the export market. And in that being said, we have people who are currently on island are investing in infrastructure and in some areas in partnership with us to harness and take advantage of the export market, and people who are well trained and who have international expertise in doing so, even as we speak. So we are not doing these things in isolation. And so, in addition to providing this enabling environment for fishers, because before, don't forget where we were in the 90s, even in the 90s and so on, of the connotation that how people saw a fisher, a man with a big hat. I even recently I was saying, yes, these pictures are nice to have on a wall. A man with and his pants is always torn and his shirt is always in a distasteful way, but we think that's a beautiful picture. But to me, that's not a beautiful picture. It looks perhaps good on a wall on a painting, but for me, what I like to see is individuals now who are engaged in the fisheries sector as we are now, who can send their children to school, who can send their children to university, who can go to auto trade and get a front air, not serious. And you come, and sometimes you come to the landing site and you think there is a convention or meeting, but these are just fishers' vehicles parked who have gone out to sea and who can come back. And then, so we are doing many things. I don't know if time will provide us with all of these things on the ground as we speak to create the enabling environment to them. And I will just quickly mention, because I mean time is running out, we have given management authority of the marketing component of the Roseau Fish Market to Dexia. And why Dexia? And people say, why Dexia? Why? Because Dexia is already a government entity which is engaged in the marketing of agricultural produce. And so why not add an additional portfolio to this agricultural produce, which is fish. Fish is also part of agriculture because they already have the expertise, they already have the system, they already have the structure. And so we will see additional investment being done there in terms of human resource and in terms of putting things in place so that they can, in very quick time, start to purchase fish from fishers. But I'm very passionate about that. I am still a bit sad. More than a year since we have opened the fisheries sector and have not yet started the wholesale purchase of fish from fishers that we used to before. I will say that I take responsibility. We don't run away from responsibility in part of this government. When something is lagging, something is delayed, I say so. And but all emphasis will go on doing that, because I have seen in the past 3 weeks, that we have had, a good catch and abundance of yellowfin tunas. And very quickly, the market has been flooded, of course. We have a very small domestic market. And if we have the facility operating, purchasing fish wholesale, that is good quality fish, I must say. So we don't want fishers to be handling their fish in any such way and think you can take it to the facility. But that will enable the fisher to focus on fishing and not marketing, and have the entity Dexia, which have all of the facilities that is necessary at the Roseau Fish Market to focus on marketing for these individuals, so that they can go like everybody else on a Friday and just focus on going to pick up the check and focus on fishing. So I just want to assure my fishers and my friends, I must say, many of them who have come up to me in the past week, talking about the marketing aspect, that we are working on it. Of course, we have other limiting factors in some areas. We were looking for to have generate our capacity in terms of ice production. So we will be lending support to small organizations in small ice machines, because a few years ago, Roseau alone was sufficient to provide ice for everywhere. But we have done a very good job in promoting food safety, in encouraging fishers to use ice, in encouraging every boat that is being built that it now has an ice box. So now we have seen the demand for ice increase tremendously, and it has put some strain on the system, but good strain, good pressure. I welcome it. I welcome the challenge, and we will work towards addressing this issue. I assure fishers in Portsmouth, in Marigot, and even Roseau. I went to Roseau to a meeting at the complex on 2 days ago, last week, and I saw a sign at the gate that ice is reserved only for fishers. That means to show you the demand for ice. It is so high that the management there took a decision that they were not going to sell ice to the general public as they sometimes do, for beverages and so on. And so this is not because there was a shortage of ice, but this is because an increase in production. And it's the same thing that we have that occurs sometimes in Marigot and in Portsmouth. It is the same machine they produce when fish is not in high abundance. You would think that it has a lot of ice, but when fish, is really given, as the fishers say, that the demand becomes so high that it really overwhelms the production. So we are working on enhancing and increasing ice production capacity, and we will try to do so in the quickest possible time.
So before we move on, just to like repetition for emphasis, because there's so many good points I got there. We're saying that ICE now, Dexia is in charge of the Roseau Fisheries Complex there, where we purchase
the marketing component.
Yes. And then that has started from?
That started from a few months ago. We entered into arrangement. Of course, it takes a few months to put systems in place.
But everything is coming along.
Yeah, everything is coming along. They will put the structures in place. And of course, as you know, they would have had to put a budget together because they would have inherited it while the financial year was already on. As any government agency, they would have had to factor certain things in this year budget, and I'm hoping that is there so that it would enable them to go forward in a much better way once the financial year.
And how have the fishermen received that?
Well, I go to the facility. Yes. Of course, you have mixed views of different things, and most of it is not about the management. The fishers are not really concerned over who manage the area because they themselves don't want it. Management is a big thing. So it's not like going to say a man has to concentrate on fishing, okay? But it is just that their expectation. They have a lot of expectation. And I assure them that, a lot of the expectations will be met. And what the expectation is mostly one main thing, somewhere that I can take my fish. I come in, I have 5 tuners, I wait for you, look your thing, Friday, come for your check. That is generally the number one thing the individuals want, and that they can get in terms of their input, such as ice and so on, so that they can go to fish the next day.
And that is our plan.
And that is our plan, and that is the track that we are on. A
quick question: the picture we saw of the fisher in Scottshead, I thought that was photoshopped. So have you seen that picture? Was that actually a real marlin?
Yeah. I have seen this picture.
I thought it was photoshopped.
So there's a lot of things. Yes. I'm not sure. I didn't get the weight, but perhaps this is like a couple 100 pounds. And this is things that this is.
How he maneuvered that by himself?
Every year you have a few of these. I think we have had the biggest on record is a little over 1,000 pounds. We have had my partner Rudette in Kulibistri. I remember one is almost have been 1,000 pounds or more. I remember Kusin in Fonkole. So from time and a few times we have had those in the high 700s, 800. So
I'm doing those basic maths.
Yeah. So it is not. It is
by $10 a pound.
The one that we saw by Fisheries is a nice fella, but it is not unusual. Ooh. It is not unusual.
I was impressed. I said it was photoshopped. Honestly.
It was a blue marlin. It was very real.
With AI and all those things, they got to be careful.
Yes.
So anybody saw that was a real fish that was caught right here in Dominica, okay, by our fisherman. That fisherman has been plying that trade for about 40, 50 years.
He's relatively young. Well, I wouldn't say relatively young. He has been involved in fishing for a long time. Yes. I know Fitzroy, his family,
okay,
his mom.
Nice.
His mom is a fish vendor. These are people I know.
Okay.
Throughout my little lifespan of me being engaged in this industry. And these are young people who have come up and remain in this sector and make a living in this sector. Okay, these are people who, guys at Fisheries who are working other jobs and decide that he's going to remain in the fishery sector long term. So you have many of these.
But honorably for you must take into account there's a big risk, big reward. But what about in terms of every year you have the hurricane season? And every year there's the threat of losing your vessel, losing your gear. So how do you really balance that off?
Mm-hmm. There is nothing you can do to balance. There's no balancing off. It is just all about preparedness. You have to be prepared, adhere to warning, and I will say in recent years that fishers have been doing very well in adhering to warnings, although from time to time you have events and some fishers may underestimate certain events. So this is why we want to encourage them to take the full measure. Do not say, well, they say the wave height is going to be this, so we'll just pull it up halfway. And sometimes too, you're unfortunate to be affected by multiple factors. As you can see, especially like in Roseau, in the Roseau area. So you may find a fisher may do very well to pull his boat all the way up to whatever street you may call it. But then you may have a flood. And then that flood may come down and take away his boat. So pretty much a lot of the boats we got destroyed at the Roseau Fisheries Complex were not destroyed by rough seas, They were destroyed by floods from the Roseau River. So you have that. But I will say fishers have been adhering to warnings and calls from the whenever notices are put out from ODM. And what we do, we not only that we depend on the notices that are put out from ODM, but officers from the Fisheries Division do actively goes to the site whenever a weather system is announced to ensure that individuals, they go on the ground to make sure that individuals pull up the boat very early. Of course, in every society, you're going to have individuals who are a bit, don't want to follow the rules or think or don't want to go the 100% the full way, and then they may suffer the consequence. But that is, you cannot avoid this in every society. But in general, we have very high compliance in people adhering to and taking full measure. As you said, yes, you can bring your boat as high up as you can, but a tree can fall on it that you cannot avoid. Okay, but in general, I am quite satisfied, I must say, at this time that fishers are adhering to measures or warnings and notices that are put out.
Do you think that also that the training that we provide, the basic fisherman's training course, has helped in that aspect?
Yes, definitely, because as you know, as a requirement to become a registered fisher, for many years we had introduced the basic fisherman training course, which teaches them a lot of things and bring in a lot of expert lecturers and so on to advise on these things. But I believe just nature and experience itself has been the greatest teacher in this thing. As unfortunate as it may be, but you have individuals who have suffered tremendous personal loss in terms of the assets and who have rebounded. So and as you know, the insurance, there is no insurance for the small boats, and it's not because of lack of trying. The region has tried for many years, OECS, CARICOM, but it is because of the nature of the activity itself, being out at sea, and the risk factor makes an insurance coverage almost very prohibitive. But that doesn't mean to say that we have given up. Of course, we will. The government in itself will explore other avenues such as parametric insurance. That is insurance that is contracted by the state itself. Because at the end of the day, we always step in. Regardless, we say that it is your personal responsibility and so on. But when something happens, of course, as you know, this government always do. It's a very empathetic government. That we will step in to assist people in the terms of need and to restore their livelihoods. But that doesn't mean to say that we do not put the onus on them to really prepare themselves for these things. But in the event we have the unfortunate situation, we do step in. And I will be looking at parametric insurance because you have it for the general category of disasters such as hurricanes and winds, and even have now drought, and even there is a product for agriculture, but there is also those being developed for fisheries. And these are avenues that we will look at so that can assist the government in the event something catastrophic happens and unfortunate happens to fishers' assets and on landing sites, that we can use this payout to put back into these sectors.
But we're going to do two questions because it's now 8:15. But I really need to ask you, speaking of government, the budget day is approaching. We have a number of capital projects being undertaken. How do you see the fishery sector benefiting from that? When you look at the airport project, you look at the marina. I just saw in a photo up in terms of the tourism facility, etc. Yeah, how do you feel about that? You going into your budget presentation?
Yeah, I feel very happy at what we have, and because I do not look at development in terms of budgetary wise with sectoral in a silo. So some people will say, "Boy, what fisheries have and so on and this have that." No, the budget is strategic, development is strategic. So there is thinking. At one point in time, there is a sector that will dominate. At another time, and we will move from sector to sector based on needs. and based on where you think growth is. So it's not about one sector receive more attention than the other. As I said, development is strategic, and such as the targeting of whatever revenue and budget that you have will reflect that. Notwithstanding that fisheries is a very important sector, and as I mentioned to you, there significant attention will be given to a number of fish landing sites in this budgetary cycle. That's so I am very happy and confident in the share in which the fisheries sector will receive and the contribution. Of course, in addition to that, throughout the fiscal year, I know there are other opportunities perhaps that are not within the budget, because fisheries sector have always been known for, in preparing and writing grants and get a lot of external revenues to assist fishers from the community level and landing site level and so on. So these things will continue. So sometimes there are benefits that will come up during the financial year that are not generally articulated in the budget right now. But as we speak, I'm confident and I am happy with what the budget has catered to for some of our fishers landing sites, and these interventions will be much more valuable. The impact of this country much more valuable than the capital investment that will be put in it. The outcomes.
And we do know, in terms of the landing sites, though, will the labor come external to the community? We're looking at 9 communities, filled maybe with contractors, contracting firms, teams. Where will the labor come from?
I mean, Dominica is a small place, and you have different mixed resource pools and capacities. In some communities, you may not have capacities, but as much as possible, the project emphasizing on getting contractors, laborers, and so on to implement works in the respective communities where these projects are undertaken. Of course, there are processes that you have to go through, as you know, because of funding, the funding obligations and so forth. But to the extent possible, the people who are in charge of these projects try as much as possible to work with our lending agencies to make them understand that we're not only doing a physical project in this place, but we want to create other impacts, such as livelihoods and jobs and so on. So thus far, from what I see in terms of the few projects which have always been ready for signing, that this has been well taken care of, and people from the communities will, in addition to the fishers, others will see benefit and from the spill-offs of these projects.
So nice, that full circle and holistic. The first ever OECS Youth in Agriculture Symposium is being planned for and will be hosted next month. In terms of the OECS youth, our local youth who are involved in the sector, fisheries, agriculture, etc. What do you look forward to? And are you excited about that?
Of course, I'm very excited. It is an initiative that is being planned for quite some time, and when Honorable Roy was the chair of the OECS, Ministers of Agriculture, so he pushed very hard for it. And even after he left of the chair, he's still being very heavily relied upon. As you know, he's a very avid agriculturist himself and very passionate about agriculture. So he has championed this very much from day one. And I'm very happy that we are in an area now where we can see all of the light at the end of the tunnel. And it took a lot of work. I mean, I have, even if my portfolio is fisheries, we work in very close collaboration within the ministry. I know everything that goes on within his portfolio, and his vice versa. He knows everything that goes on within my portfolio. So I have been engaged throughout the process, and I know it took a lot of hard work from our local people, at the ministry and agriculture division and fisheries and planning and so on, and even of our partners who are the OECS. They have been working tremendously hard to bring this much needed conference and gathering of young people together. And what better place to bring them than Dominica, to see the diverse type of agriculture that we have. And even today, and our market is still a pleasure for tourists, those who have the opportunity to be in Dominica on a Friday evening going into Saturday. The number of fresh produce, even this week I was getting that. And just the diverse different terrain and challenges and opportunities, I think Dominica could not be a much more fitting place, and almost everything is being done. And we have a lot of collaborating ministries that are helping. As you know, we are bringing quite a number, over 20-something foreign young persons into Dominica, in addition to our own, and even people from the OCR Secretariat. I believe perhaps other agencies such as partners such as the EU, and so on. So as I said, I'm very happy, looking forward to make my meaningful contribution as always, and I will be there and engage in everything that I'm asked to.
Did you ever think your schedule would be so packed? Would you have been so busy if someone had told you this is what is going to happen?
I mean, you're speaking about in the job in generally. Like,
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
I
Because you
mean,
do have the side job of being a pal rep.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So PM speak about that all the time, and people. Well, I don't know if that is the forum for that, but I mean, once as you know me before in my job, if I have a job, I have a job to do, and it is what it is, and I embrace it, I enjoy it, and with most of my constituents know, tell you, I mean, people will in this. I mean, I'm not withstanding. I have to add that I am a politician, and it is not easy work. People will say mean things to you, but you take comfort from that 90% or 99% says good things to you. I love my job. I do my job. It comes with the territory. It comes with the sleepless nights. It comes with the hard work. It comes with the long days. It comes with the not being there to help your child with the homework because you get home late every day. And this is the territory. But this is a self-sacrifice as a young person, as a young professional, when you choose to run for public office. It is not for glamour, which most people believe and explain to them that perhaps if I hand them my job for a day, they will call me to take it back. But that being said, I love the work. I love the work. I love helping people. I love representing people. I do what I can to the best of my ability. Always, as you said, people say they call you. Yeah, you'll miss a call. You'll miss a message. I will call back a day later, and so on. You could never capture all, but I just put my all into it. I put my best.
So the
Respect
fishers
people.
and the fisheries division still have a ready
I
access to you.
I have kept every single one of my friendship and more. I engage them, they engage me. I call to see how they're doing. Some I take a little time to reach out to and tell me, boy, I don't know why you're going that thing, check in us, and but I try my best. And as you know, I have individuals from Capuchin to Kashaku who I liaise with, and they call for advice, and I still provide advice and so on in terms of investment, in terms of of all manner of things to do with the sector.
Okay, so that's it. I mean, we can go on. Both of us, we can actually go on, but I know we have another scheduled program. So, Liberty, for just your final comments, we will see again maybe before the year has ended or is ending. But just your final comments and wrap up, and just to give a word of encouragement maybe to the fishers or whoever you see fit.
All right. So Rufan, I just want to say, and I want to speak to the fishers, especially now those going through sort of a difficult time in terms of the market and in terms of adequate eyes and so on, that these are issues and problems that we're working with, and we're looking to bring a bit relief, perhaps coming days, weeks, and months, and that this relief will be a bit more long term, so that we don't have these issues perhaps occurring next year, and tell others too within the water sports sector. A lot of the people that we work with engaging in hand markets continue to market Dominica, continue to invest, and again these are other areas, while you make more money upgrading in the type of boats that you have so that you can attract higher end tourists, take advantage of the opportunities that government provide, at the aid bank, low cost financing to perhaps buy a better boat, upgrade your boat, perhaps upgrade your engine, move from 2-stroke to 4-stroke so that you can improve your efficiency. So this is just generally speaking to the people in the entire sector, both the traditional blue economy such as fisheries, those in the water sport sectors. And lastly, I want to say, I want to end on, reaching out to the people of my constituency, in the entire constituency, as I mentioned in the beginning. I know many of them are listening, and they support me, and I want them to know, reassure them that I am always there, committed to give my support until the day that I'm no longer engaging in this activity. That is all of it. It's always all or nothing for me. And if one day I think that I cannot do this job, then I will humbly tell the Prime Minister that I think I have reached my cap and I cannot do this job. But once I am on duty, I am forever on duty.
I think so myself. Well, that's it for us. Thank you very, very much, Honorable Defoe, for being part of our special program. As you know, we're normally on Thursdays, but we're on this evening, and we do know that you were busy and your schedule is packed. And this week until maybe after August 9th, you will be quite busy. But you know that we have to really engage the public because we do have a goal, and the goal of 700 million in terms of our contribution to the GDP by 2030 is fast approaching, and it doesn't just mean on paper. It means practically real in real terms, in real time, that people can make money within the sector. Because without farms, without fishing, there would be no families and there would be no communities. So I just want people to be aware of that. You have AI, you have all these other sectors, but your food basket and the gains and the spoils from the farms and fishing sector will be primary, because I mean we all eat and we all enjoy a good meal, and therefore let's make some money, as you keep saying, leveraging what we have, capitalizing on what we have. So that's it for us from the Ministry of Agriculture and the Blue and Green Economy and the Fisheries. Until next month for another program of this nature, we do want to say thank you very much to our listeners. Thank you very much to those who encourage us and continue to get solid, factual information from us when it comes to the agricultural fishing sector. Until then, everyone, have a good night, have a good evening, and stay safe.
Right.
Are you into agribusiness or agri-trading? Do you want to join the sector? Are you looking for guidance? The Ministry of Agriculture